Hello, welcome back. I'm Tom Burgess-Watson. It's time now for Eye on Africa here on France 24. Kenya's former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, says progress has been made after peace talks between the DRC and armed rebel groups. Those talks, hosted by Nairobi, have just wrapped up. In a fashion first, Chanel holds a fashion show in Dakar, its first ever catwalk in sub-Saharan Africa. Coming up, we'll be meeting some of Senegal's up-and-coming design talent. And a sporting first for Africa as Morocco beats Spain on penalties in their World Cup match today. Morocco becomes the first African nation and the first Arab nation ever to advance to the quarterfinals. Welcome to the programme. We begin in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, where 8 days of peace talks have just wrapped up. The focus of those talks, the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And representatives from around 50 armed groups in this volatile region of the DRC were involved in the exchange. However, the M23 rebel group did not take part in those talks. Even so, Kenya's former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, who is facilitating the dialogue, says progress has been made. Our France 24 team is following those negotiations and filed this report.
Consultations for the release of prisoners, integration of rebels into the DRC security forces, renewal of the disarmament program. The roadmap adopted in Nairobi includes 10 distinct points to allow progress towards peace.
We're happy with the resolutions that have been taken, yet there is a but. There are already many documents like this which have been signed in the past, and we're still waiting for the results of those to play out. We continue to suffer. Peace does not come.
Despite these doubts, the armed groups present signed the documents and committed to continue the talks in early 2023.
We now start taking off the action we are going to take so that in January, February, we can make assessment in relation to the commitment we have made today. We will provide security for the community and we are prepared for the disarmament program.
According to the representative of the DRC's president, this third meeting was a success.
We are now achieving concrete results. In particular, the armed groups, which have committed themselves since April to maintaining the ceasefire, they have maintained it. The activities of humanitarian workers in the regions under their control have continued, and today, if you followed the address, we have requested the immediate release of children associated with armed groups and have planned for further meetings.
The negotiators have warned the population that 20 years of conflict cannot end in a day. There is still a long road ahead.
And I'm hopeful that when we meet again in Goma, which is the place, and we have said that that should happen between January and February, we should be able to report progress on the items that have been agreed upon here, and then engage into some of the more medium-term and long-term agenda items that require time.
Economic development is among these long-term objectives. But to achieve this, foreign armed groups like M23 will also have to withdraw from occupied positions. However, they are not involved in the negotiations.
Well, on the sidelines of those talks in Nairobi, diplomatic relations are strained between Rwanda, which is regularly accused of supporting the M23 group, and its partners. But Rwanda accuses the international community of exacerbating the conflict in the DRC. Well, France 24's Clément Diroma is there with the latest.
The Rwandan statement follows a call between U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and President Paul Kagame. After the exchange, the United States said that, I quote, any external support to armed groups in the DRC must end, including Rwanda's assistance to M23. This direct accusation is quite a step up on the diplomatic front for Washington. However, Kigali still denies these accusations of support. 24 hours after this American declaration, the head of Rwandan diplomacy replied, for Vincent Biruta, the international community has a wrong and misguided approach which exacerbates the problems of the conflict in eastern DRC. The minister also asserted that the M23 was not Rwanda's problem and denounced external interference in the regional peace processes. This renewed diplomatic tension comes a few days after a verbal escalation between the two neighboring presidents. Paul Kagame had accused Felix Tshisekedi of taking advantage of the crisis in the east to postpone the presidential election. The latter had responded by accusing his neighbor of being a war maker and claiming that the Rwandan regime was DRC's enemy.
In other news, a debate was supposed to take place today in the South African Parliament on the subject of a damning report which could have serious consequences for President Cyril Ramaphosa. All of this stems from a robbery of a large sum of cash from the president's farmhouse, raising questions about where that money came from. And the report suggests that Ramaphosa could have broken anti-corruption laws. Well, the debate on that report has now been postponed until next week, and it's expected that opposition parties will then file a motion to impeach President Ramaphosa. Well, here's what MPs there in South Africa had to say about all this.
Point other panels, at least they must have enough time, they must have clear terms of reference. We are not fighting with the panelists, but we are saying their conclusion is not very conclusive because they have some doubts in terms of whether the president has contravened the constitution or not. And we are saying this is a democratic country. Anyone has a right to take a matter to review.
So it is a bit suspicious that we're seeing the same Zuma playbook, using the parliamentary majority to defend yourself and Stalingrad legal tactics. We're seeing exactly the same situation as we saw play out under Mr. Zuma. So I think it is the wrong call. As parliamentarians, we've got a duty to hold the executive accountable, and that applies to every parliamentarian. It shouldn't be just the opposition.
Now, Paris, Milan, New York and Tokyo. Those are all cities you associate with fashion, but you might want to add to that list the Senegalese capital, Dakar, because it's been chosen by the French luxury house Chanel to showcase one of its latest collections. This is, in fact, Chanel's first ever catwalk in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, France 24 team went to find out more now about Dakar's up-and-coming design scene.
Grand Yoff is a working-class neighbourhood of Dakar and the home to Lumu Ngom's studio. This self-taught fashion designer is only 24, but has already earned a reputation for his unique style, inspired by wild imagination.
I am connected to the future. That is why I like to make crazy things. Often people tell me I am mad.
Lumu works to order and makes a steady living from his craft. His creations are regularly spotted in the music videos of some of the country's biggest artists.
I was about 9 or 10 when I began making clothes, by modifying my own clothes that my parents bought for me, to be different from others.
Lumu is known for using recycled clothes. He buys second-hand items from Koloban, a sprawling market on the edge of town, before transforming them into original designs.
You can find everything here, even shoes and other things you can modify. Over there, I found a really nice little jacket.
Lumu was chosen to exhibit at Dakar Fashion Week earlier this month, his debut appearance on the national stage. He feels emboldened by this.
It was my dream to do my first show and to show my clothes to the people of Dakar. Often people don't think that I'm really Senegalese, even though I'm a true Senegalese.
Stylist Adama Paris was impressed by Lumu's work.
He has an imaginative universe all of his own. I really like how fresh he is. He's an artist.
After his first show in Dakar, Lumu now hopes to make it on the international stage.
Well, from fashion to sports now, and to perhaps one of the biggest surprises so far in the World Cup. After a match that ended 0-0, Morocco and Spain went to penalties in their match today. Morocco won the shootout, making it the first Arab nation ever to advance to the World Cup quarter-finals. Well, in their next game, Morocco is going to face either of Portugal or Switzerland. Well, there were scenes of ecstatic supporters there in Qatar, where Moroccan fans significantly outnumbered the Spaniards. Well, let's get more now from France 24's John-Emile Jamin, who joins us from the sports desk. Hi there, John-Emile. Talk us through how the Moroccans got on.
Wow. What an unbelievable result. Can I just say, yes, like you said, one of the shocks of the World Cup so far. Morocco, in fact, already beat Belgium 2-0. Now they go on to knock the Spanish 2010 champions out of the tournament. And as you mentioned, in doing so, become the first Maghrebian nation and first Arab nation to reach the quarterfinals, pipping what Algeria did in 2014 against Germany. So what an incredible result. Such close chances for the likes of Walid Shadira to beat goalkeeper Unai Simon in the match. match, but it did finish 0-0, and that incredible defense that Walid Regragui has basically formed in his image in only 3 months in charge, doing the job yet again and denying Spain any goal-scoring opportunities, ultimately in front of an absolutely electric atmosphere at the Education City Stadium. Morocco come out on top on penalties. A huge congratulations, it has to be said to them. A great feat.
Yeah, I'm sure they were getting some of the energy from their large numbers of fans in the crowds there. Just tell us how important all of this is for African football.
Well, if you consider that African teams have already won 3 more games in this World Cup than at any other previous World Cup, it just shows that there is progress being made, and it's all across the board. Of course, we did have hopes for the likes of Senegal. They ultimately came up against an England team far too strong. And as well, we've seen Ghana just not quite having that big match mentality. Cameroon became the first African team to beat Brazil in the group stages. So also a lot of promise, but Morocco finally taking that big match temperament to the next level. And I'd like to quickly touch on the defense, because it is the defense that has got them this far. They've only conceded 1 goal this entire tournament, and that was an own goal. So when you take that into account, really you can see the structure of African football going forward, and a lot of promise to come from there.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Jean-Emile Germain from the Sports Desk, thank you very much indeed to you. And thanks to you for watching this edition of Eye on Africa. More news at the top of the hour.